Shalom, everybody. We're just giving it some time to let some of the brothers and sisters come in before we start the lesson up.
But I'm afraid. I'm all ready.
What'd you say, King?
I said I'm about almost ready.
Me too. Me too.
Y'all might want to get your pens and pads, man. Pens and pads. Because it's finna be good. It's some history that's not talked about often.
Some important history.
Important history. Your history. History that leads into the New Testament.
Yeah. Yeah. That was key right there.
That was key, wasn't it? That was key.
If y'all take a look at this family tree, you see it say Hasmonean Dynasty family tree.
Uh-oh.
A lot of people are not aware of the Hasmonean Dynasty. A lot of people are, but never heard of this term. Also,
Yep.
If you know about the Maccabees, then you know a little bit about the Hasmonean Dynasty.
Look who down here, bro. Who that?
You got Herod the Great. A lot of people know about Herod the Great in the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Herod. That's exactly who you're thinking of.
Yep.
Herod's temple. It's a lot going on. It's a lot of politics. A lot of politics. Herod, people don't know that Herod really, he knew our history. He knew. He became the king of the Jews. He was tapped in, to be honest.
An Edomite.
Idumean.
He's only a couple generations
away from Mattathias.
Yep. Good history for to learn, man. Good history. I guess we can open it up by giving all praises, all honor, and all glory to the Most High God Yahweh, by Hashem Hamashiach Yahushua. As the title says, this is a brief Hasmonean history. Brief Hasmonean history. We're going to kind of go into some introductories, touch on maybe one or two men. It's a lot we don't know. It's a lot that we don't know. We had a queen in Israel at one point in time. A queen, and she did good. I'm not gonna lie, she was doing a lot better than these brothers was. But it's a lot going on. It's a lot that our people don't know about. It's a lot of history that's not talked about. And we are going to get into it. First off, I want to get into what Hasmonean means, or what it is, where did it come from. Hasmonean dynasty of ancient Judea, descendants of the Maccabee family. The name derived, according to the Flavius Josephus in the Antiquity of the Jews, from the name of their ancestor Hasmoneus. Hasmoneus. This is where the name comes from. The Hasmonean dynasty, the time where we were ruling over our own land and no one was over us, in a sort of sense. We had I guess the word is autonomy over our own land, right? Now, you can all visit this Jewish virtual library. You can all read and see the same things that we read and see. Let's just get into it. It says, as part of the ancient world conquered by Alexander the Great of Greece, the land remained a Jewish theocracy under Syrian-based Seleucid rulers. So it says theocracy. What is a theocracy? When you go into the word theo, a lot of you debating brothers should know what theo is. Theo is the Greek word for God. So a theocracy, it says a system of government in which priests rule in the name of God or a God. The Commonwealth of Israel from the time of Moses until the election of Saul as king. So I don't know why they got that mentioned right there, but in the second Commonwealth of Israel, whenever our temple got built up the second time, we were a theocracy. Meaning what? Our priest ruled. We didn't have a king in the lineage of David from the time of since the Greeks came into power, I believe. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, since Mattathias was on the scene, because Mattathias wasn't a king, but he was a priest. And they put him and his family as the rulers, as the chief men, as the men in charge. There's a book that I'm reading. It's called the History of the Jews. And it says that they would let, Mattathias' lineage rule until a prophet was to come and tell us, what to do. Because we were supposed to have someone from the lineage of, I believe, Onias be the high priest, and then somebody from the lineage of King David to be the king. Neither one of those people were available. Onias, his folks was in Egypt. King David's folks was in Babylon at the time. So now what do? We have somebody else. We have a priest come in from Mattathias' family, and they are to be rulers. They have to be in charge. So when the priests aren't ruled, that is a theocracy. We have a theocracy, right? Let's go back to where we was at. It says, when the Jews, right here, when the Jews were prohibited from practicing Judaism and their temple was desecrated as part of an effort to impose Greek-oriented culture and customs on an entire population, Jews rose in revolt in 166 BC, first led by Mattathias, the priestly Hasmonean family, and then by his son Judah the Maccabee. The Jews subsequently entered Jerusalem and purified the temple. 164 BC, events commemorated each year by the festival of Hanukkah. Following further Hasmonean victories, the Seleucids restored autonomy to Judea as the land of Israel was now called, and with the collapse of the Seleucid kingdom, Jewish independence was again achieved under the Hasmonean dynasty, which lasted about 80 years. The kingdom regained boundaries not far short from Solomon's realm. Political consolidation under Jewish rule was attained and Jewish life flourished. So we regained autonomy and independence for around 80 years. We are going to read and see what happened during those 80 years. What happened during that 80 years when, you know, we ruled to ourselves? Let's go here. I don't know which one I want to grab first. If I want to grab this one, we can start here with John Hyrcanus. Let's go back and look at the family tree. You got Mattathias. We all read about Mattathias. It's in the book of Maccabees. We all read about his sons. John, Simon, Judas, Eleazar, Jonathan. Right? Now we're going to read about Simon's son, John Hyrcanus. John Hyrcanus, or known as Yohanan Hyrcanus. Right? Shalom Shak. John Hyrcanus was a Hasmonean leader and Jewish high priest of Israel of the 2nd century BC. Born 164 BC, reigned from 134 until he died in 104. In rabbinic literature, he is often referred to as Yohanan Kohen Gadol, John the High Priest. John the High Priest. Remember, this is a theocracy, so our priests are ruling, right? It says Josephus explains in the Jewish War that John was also known as Hyrcanus, but does not explain the reason behind his name. The only primary source of the book of Maccabees never used this name for John. The single occurrence of the name Hyrcanus in 2nd Maccabees 3:11 refers to a man to whom some of the money of the temple belonged to during the 178 BC of the Helidorus. That's not really important. Let's go down here. He was the son of Simon Thassi and hence the nephew of Judas Maccabees, Jonathan, and their siblings, whose story is told in the deuterocanonical book of 1st Maccabees and 2nd Maccabees, in the Talmud, and in Josephus. John was not present at a banquet at which his father and his 2 brothers were murdered by John's brother-in-law, Ptolemy, son of Abubas. He attained his father's former office as high priest and ethnarch, but not king. Josephus said that John Hyrcanus had 5 sons, but he named only 4 in his histories. Judah, Aristobulus I. We're going to learn about Judah. He's going to come up next. Judah, Aristobulus I, Antigonus I, Alexander Janai. We're also going to learn about Alexander Janai. These 2 are the probably main 2 that we're going to learn about coming from John Hyrcanus. And Absalom. It is the 5th brother who is said to have unsuccessfully sought the throne at the death of Aristobulus I, according to the Antiquity of the Jews. During the first year of John Hyrcanus' reign, he faced a serious challenge to Judean independence from the Seleucid Empire. Antiochus marched into Judea, pillaged the countryside, and laid what became a year-long siege of Jerusalem. The prolonged siege caused Hyrcanus to remove any Judean from the city who could not assist with the defense effort. These refugees were not allowed to pass through Antiochus' lines, becoming trapped in the middle of a chaotic siege. Facing humanitarian crisis, Hyrcanus readmitted his estranged Jerusalemites when the festival of Sukkot arrived, and as food shortages in Jerusalem became severe, Hyrcanus negotiated a truce with Antiochus. The terms of the truce required payment of 3,000 talents of silver to Antiochus, the dismantling of the walls of Jerusalem, Judean participation in the Seleucid War against the Parthians, and renewed Judean recognition of Seleucid control. These terms were a harsh blow to Hyrcanus, who had to loot the tomb of David to pay the 3,000 talents. That's recorded in the Wars of the Jews. So obviously, still got to deal with these folks. Still got to deal with the Greeks. This is a different Antiochus from the one we read about in Maccabees, I believe. But he had to eventually make a truce, right? Let's keep reading. Following the Seleucid siege, Judea faced tough economic times, which were magnified by taxes to the Seleucid enforced by Antiochus. Furthermore, Hyrcanus was forced to accompany Antiochus on his eastern campaign in 130 BC. Hyrcanus probably functioned as the military commander of the Jewish company in the campaign. It is reported that Antiochus, out of consideration for his religion of his Jewish allies, at one point ordered a 2 days halt of the entire army to allow them to avoid breaking the Sabbath and the festival of Shavuot. So during this time, obviously, we were still upholding and keeping law, statutes, and commandments. John Hyrcanus, from what I know, was righteous, right? He was one of the righteous leaders that we did have. From what I know, I haven't read anything too off about him yet, right? Let's keep reading.
I'm gonna pull up that who is Esau, who is Edom, because it gives you some information about John Hyrcanus. Let me make a quick connection, real quick, King.
Go ahead.
Because as we reading this, I can tell just from me, it's not easy to make certain connections. So look at this, y'all. Whenever we talking about John Hyrcanus, we're gonna be talking about John Hyrcanus, his descendants. Some people don't even know where John Hyrcanus is because we could have easily missed it. Look at this. So whenever you go to 1 Maccabees chapter 2, mind you, we're going to be going over a lot of information, and we're not going to go into the book of Maccabees because you get a lot of information from the book of Maccabees, but when you start going into John Hyrcanus, that's the period of history that we don't got a whole bunch of in the book of Maccabees. So real quick, let me pull up the scripture. I ain't pulled up my video in a minute. How I do that? Oh wait, I found it. Watch out now. I'm on something. Let's pull up the entire screen. I can even pull up that who is Esau, who is Edom too. So look right here. Is it on my screen?
Yeah, it's popping up.
Okay, cool. So 1 Maccabees chapter 2, it says, in those days arose Mattathias, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorib. So Mattathias, he's one of like the starters of this dynasty. As you read it in the book of Maccabees, he is like the father of, let's read it. It says they're from Jerusalem and they dwelt in Modin. So this is where they dwelt. This is where the book of Maccabees really take place. Like you got to read the book of Maccabees. If you haven't read any of the book of Maccabees, you ain't celebrated none of the feast days of Maccabees. You never kept feast of rededication of the temple. You don't know about some of the history, how we was fighting and making wars against Idumeans, against Greeks, how we was actually in the Greek captivity. Some of the stuff, it's going to be hard to make the connections. So you got to understand our main op at this time is the Greeks. That's something that's worth mentioning. So you got Mattathias. Mattathias, it says, had 5 sons. Johanan, and he was called Caddis. You got Simon. Simon is important. I'm going to go back up to Simon. Really, all of the brothers is important, don't get me wrong. But because we going into in-depth about John Hyrcanus, we're going to go back to Simon. It says Simon, who was called Thasai. It says Judas, who was called Maccabees. Everybody should know about Judas Maccabees. He was one of the most valiant brothers we had when it comes to making war. And he was knocking down thousands of Edomites with people. We didn't even have the numbers on our side. We'd go out there with way less men, but because we had a valiant leader like Judas, who was wise, who knew how to do guerrilla warfare, guerrilla tactics, this is why we was able to win and conquer and win in some of these battles. Let me just say that. You got Eleazar, and he was called Avarin, and then you got Jonathan, whose surname was Apphus. So Mattathias is on his deathbed, and he finna tell his sons what they need to do. He told Simon he was going to be like a father for the rest of his brothers. He was going to be like their father because Simon had wisdom. Simon was beloved by the people. He was like the last brother to reign out of his brothers. Each one of his brothers died. They basically died in battle for the most part. They died fighting the battles of Israel. And then the last brother, you got Simon. He stepped up. He was basically the king. He come from a priestly line. You see this? He come from a priestly line. He was really a Levite. But because Aharon spoke on this, we wasn't ruled by kings at this time. That's why Aharon went into the theocracy, how we was ruled by our priests. Our priests, they was basically ruling like they were the kings. So this is kind of our introduction to help you understand some of the history. Like when it comes to making moves for the people, our priests, they basically had all of the power. Our high priests, they were like the king. So Simon, he ended up becoming our king, so to speak. And then when he passed away, his son, let's pull up that family tree one more time, King. His son came on the scene. And you do see this in the book of Maccabees. But right now, we're giving you a little bit more. That's why we're going into the history of it. And we're going to bring out some of these books. Let me drop mine. That's probably the problem. There we go. So you got Mattathias. You got his 5 sons. Then you got from Simon, you got Judas, you got Mattathias, and then you got John Hyrcanus. So Simon, he got a son. He got multiple sons, but one of the most notable sons is John Hyrcanus. And Aharon was going into information about John Hyrcanus on Google. You got to know who John Hyrcanus is because his overview and some of the things he did was crazy. It's crazy. And if you get a good understanding of that, you'll understand why Christ hit the scene, why Herod was on the scene, why everything happened the way it happened. But if you don't know anything about the Maccabees, you don't know anything about John Hyrcanus, you don't know anything about none of these people, it's going to be hard. And it gets even more fancy because we started developing some characteristics from the Greeks. Like we started naming our sons the same name as us, the second and the third. So it get tricky because you're trying to figure out, well, damn, which Alexander is this talking about? Which Aristobulus is this talking about? And you got to do that diligent research. But I'm gonna grab this information about who is Esau. Who is Esau? And y'all can look this book up or you can purchase it. Who is Edom? And I haven't even read this whole entire book, to be completely honest. But let me get the PDF. I did come across some great information about John Hyrcanus. And me and the brothers, we kind of went through it a little bit. Bear with me. Like when I'm not trying to pull up a PDF on live, it's a lot easier. Who's Esau? Who is even PDF? Rock with me. I'm working on it, y'all. They got these weak websites. At this point, I'm going to just read it out of my book. I wanted them to see it, but yeah, it's getting too crazy. All right. Hold on. Am I cooking? Oh, yeah. I'm cooking a little bit. What page is that? That's page. Okay. I'm cooking. I'm cooking.
All praises.
I'm cooking. Page 6 and 7. All right, bet. Let me grab the screen one more time. Shalom. I don't know if we shouted out anybody in the chat, man. We got Soldier Cameron, Captain Jeremiah, Soldier Zion. We got Big Shot, Walina, Shalom sis. We got Officer Dahwan, and anybody else that's viewing. Man, stay tuned. We're gonna drop some good information. If you want to have a good understanding of the scriptures, stay tuned, play close attention, because we finna drop some good gems on you. We finna drop some good gems. SOT Shamawal, you said Shalom family. I'm definitely gonna come back and watch this. Definitely do, because we finna drop some good information. All praise to the Most High. So look at this. I'm gonna share my screen. But if you can stay tuned for another second, stay tuned. All right, look at this. My screen popped up, King?
Yep.
All right, bet. So this is who is Esau, who is Edom. I'm gonna jump in at page 7. I'm gonna read page 7. So it says the Edomites. Why is it doing that? Hold on now. I'm checking the bag off. I'm gonna highlight it to make it a little bit easier to see, Lord willing. All right, I'm on the far right here at the top. See that? It says the Edomites were driven from Petra westward by the Nabateans. I'm gonna get down to the second paragraph right here. Here we go. We cooking now. It says the Nabateans now occupied Mount Seir. If you don't know where Mount Seir is, it's basically the land of Edom. Look at my cursor right here. It's right here on the 6th page, one page to the left of where the blue highlight is. Edom. Mount Seir is basically like the capital of the Edomites, or the white people's, the Idumeans territory. You understand? So they occupied this place. It says in the Edomites were driven into the old territory of Judah. So now you got Esau in our territory. It says the Maccabean family. Hold on. We've been talking about the Maccabean family. The Maccabean family, a remnant of true Judites, had ruled Judea from 166 to 166 BC to 37 BC. And under Judas Maccabees, everybody should know Judas Maccabees, he recaptured the city of Hebron from the Edomites in 164 BC. Important information. It says during the time of John Hyrcanus, look at that. We're talking about John. From 135 to 105 BC, the nephew of Judas, the Judites were again faced with hostility of the Idumeans. John Hyrcanus confronted the Edomites, causing a decisive change in relations between the two factions. It says John Hyrcanus conquered the whole of Edom and undertook the forced conversion of its inhabitants to Judaism. So John, in layman's term, we beefing with Idumeans, they in our land. We ended up taking them over via John Hyrcanus. John forced them into Judaism, meaning they had to kind of do the law, statute, commandments. It says, thenceforth, the Edomites became a section of the Jewish people. So you have Edomites kind of being in control of the Israelites. It says, thus, at this juncture of time, the Edomites were then incorporated with the Jewish nation, and their country was called by the Greeks and Romans Idumea. So now our country was starting to be called Idumea by the Greeks and the Romans. It says, but the tide turned in favor of the Edomite faction when Julius Caesar made Antipater But the tide turned in favor of the Edomite faction when Julius Caesar, let's stop right there. Aharon. So many people don't know who Julius Caesar is. This is important. We in control of the heathens. Then you have a man named Julius Caesar. We're giving you an overview of how we ended up in this position. Julius Caesar, he's important. A lot of people never heard of him. I'm sure some people have. And this helps with other prophecies in the scriptures. Not Julius Randall. Julius Caesar, quick AI overview. Julius Caesar was a Roman general and statesman who played a critical role in events that led to the demise of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. So this is important. Julian Caesar is a Roman. He's still an Edomite, but he's a Roman. And his situation, it changed the Roman Republic because the Roman Republic was ruled by multiple people and they all delegated and they all reasoned to make sure the Roman Republic was going to be strong. But then it changed to a Roman Empire where it was ruled by an emperor. So Julius Caesar was on the scene at this time and he played an imperative role about this. So let's go back to this: who was Esau, who was Edom, now that we know who Julius Caesar is. So we ruling over the heathens in our land, but then the tide turned and it changed when Julius Caesar made Antipater, made Antipater an Edomite procurator of Judea in 47 BC. Now, this is where more information come into play because it's so much politics in there. Aharon, can you jump in there and kind of talk about Antipater?
Yeah. Antipater. He comes along with from what I know, Hyrcanus's sons. Let me go to it. Antipater, the Idumean.
Exactly.
This is his name. I can share this tab. Antipater, the Idumean. Let me know whenever you got my screen pulled up.
Okay, bet. I got you. Where is that? There we go. I bet you live.
Right. Antipater the Idumean was the founder of the Herodian dynasty and father of Herod the Great. It says, according to the Josephus, he was the son of Antipas and had formerly held the name, a native of Idumea, a region southwest of Judah in which Edomites settled during the classical period. Antipater became a powerful official under the latter Hasmonean kings. Right? That's important. He was with Hyrcanus the second. Let me go to this family tree real quick. He was with this guy, Hyrcanus the second, I believe. And he had coached him to fight against his brother. He was with Antipater was for the Romans. In all honesty, he was for the Romans. Let me keep reading. And subsequently became a client of the Roman general Pompey when Pompey conquered Judah in the name of the Roman Republic. After Julius Caesar defeated Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus, Antipater sided with Caesar during the Roman Civil War. I'm not trying to get all of that right now. Though historians understand that Antipater's family had converted to Judaism in the 2nd century BC, different stories circulated in the wake of his sons coming to power. It says they demonstrate the tensions that existed between the Jewish people and the powerful Edomites who appeared at this time. Nicholas of Damascus, the court historian for Herod the Great, wrote that Herod's ancestors were among the historical elite in Jerusalem who had been taken by King Nebuchadnezzar into Babylonian captivity in the 6th century BC. Let me see. Here we go. It's not, I didn't really want that. It says, instead, Josephus explains that Antipater's family converted to Judaism during the forced conversions by the Sadducee-influenced Hasmonean leader John Hyrcanus. Hyrcanus threatened that any Idumean who wished to maintain their land would need to be circumcised and enter into the tradition of the Jews. Josephus acknowledges Herod as being by birth a Jew and Antipater as being of the same people with the Jews. Nevertheless, the influential family came to be resented by many Jews for their Edomite ancestry, a fact used by the Hasmoneans and their supporters against them as such in a polemic against Herod to discredit him in the eyes of the Romans as unfit to become the king of the Jews. So a lot of what's going on is a lot of, like we said earlier, a lot of politics. It was a good and a bad thing that John Hyrcanus did by forcing them to become Jews, right? Because we now see these Edomites now play a role in our politics, right? And we even said it said that they were a Jew by birth. That's not how it worked, but that's what they, were titled. And so now we have people like Antipater. Now we have people like Herod. Now we have people coming in, and these Edomites are really for the Romans. These Edomites, I'm going to tell you right now, did not care about the Jews. They just didn't. They didn't care. Like Shakawar said, Sadducees messed up in this saying they are Jews. This is during this time period from John Hyrcanus down to Herod is when the Pharisees and Sadducees come into play, and they're going at each other in basically civil war in a sort of matter. During that 80 years that we read of us having independence, we were always fighting each other.
So bring that out.
We was always against each other. Earlier when I mentioned the queen, she was the only one who could stop the Pharisees and Sadducees from being at each other's necks. But it was like I said, it was a good thing and a bad thing at what John Hyrcanus did, but we see it later on led to a lot more stuff. All of this stuff is going to make sense when we get into the New Testament, when we get into reading. How do we get here? How are these Edomites?
I got some more too.
How are these Romans here? Right? Go ahead, King.
All right, check this out. Which one needs my screen? Oh, it's just moving slow. Okay. All right, back at this. Who is Esau? Who is Edom? I want to keep. So Aharon been reading the book, and it got so much information in it, and we can't, like, the book like 700 pages long, right?
The history of the Jews?
Yeah,
it's about 800.
But we can't like bring it. We can't. It'll be hard to bring certain stuff out. So I'm going to who is Esau, who is Edom, to touch on some of the big points, because that thing get in depth. It gets very detailed and in depth. It's beautiful though, but for the sake of time, that's why I'm at this book. So we all got the understanding that John Hyrcanus kind of put the Edomites in subjection. The Roman Julius Caesar, he was backing up Antipater the Idumean, and that's why the tides changed, right? Going back to there, it says when Antipater was killed 4 years later, his son Herod gained power but was rejected by the Judites. So this is the Herod that most people are thinking of. This is Herod, the so-called great. We're gonna keep reading. He came into power, but our people rejected him. He was rejected by our people. All praise to the Most High. It says Herod shrewdly gained the support of Rome. So this is why Herod ended up being able to be the king over the Jews, because he was backed up by the Roman army. So if the Israelites went against him and tried to buck up against whatever he was trying to set up, the Roman military was there to back him up. And we didn't have enough might in our hands to overcome the Roman military. They like the greatest world power at the time. It says, with the Roman army at the heels, he returned to, it says, with the Roman army at his heels, he returned to Palestine, and after a 6-month siege, he captured Jerusalem and became king of Judea in 37 BC. Moving forward, it says Herod was a shrewd and unscrupulous tyrant. So he wasn't a good ruler. He sucked. Obviously, I mean, he's an Idumean. He's an Edomite. He wasn't going to do good by us, no way. But understand that he was raised up in the understanding of Judaism. He knew about our culture. He knew about our heritage. He knew about our laws. He knew the statutes, commandments. He understood these things. It says, and was despised by the Judites because he was an Idumean and not one of their own stock. It says Herod hated the people of Judah. That's a key point. Herod did not like us. He hated us. It says, I mean, most of the brothers and sisters who's in our live, y'all already got a good understanding how Edomites, how they do not like us, even still to this day. And it ain't, it is what it is. We prefer our own people too. So, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. It says, and one of his first acts was to execute 45 of the leaders of the old aristocracy to eliminate any aristocracy. There we go. To eliminate any rivalry for leadership. So because Herod is the king of Judea, to make sure that no one overthrows his kingship, he's going to go kill all of the leaders of our people that could rival him and take him over and overthrow him as the king of Judah. So he went and executed 45 of the leaders. It says, having secured the kingship, Herod next destroyed the priestly line of Hyrcanus, because we were a theocracy. We were letting our priests rule over us as a king. So he went to go kill all of John Hyrcanus' children. Now you got to understand that this line, John Hyrcanus, it goes straight to the Maccabees, Mattathias, Judah, and all of his brothers. It says the last being Antigonus, who taunted Herod with his Idumean origin. So Antigonus, he was talking shit, basically. Excuse my language. We're trying to keep this professional. My bad. Come back to the screen. It say what it say. We was scoffing. Antigonus, he was scoffing him because he was the Idumean. And we kind of still got the same spirit. We'd be like, how's Esau, this strong guy? We'd say the sun hates you. You can't be in the sun. And we kind of still got the same spirit. So it was kind of refreshing to me when I seen Antigonus do this. I ain't gonna lie. It was kind of refreshing. All right, moving forward, it says he taunted Herod with his origin and asserted that the kingdom should fall on one of the royal family. Finally, he murdered Aristobulus. Aharon, if I'm not mistaken, on the family tree, Aristobulus and Antigonus is sons of John Hyrcanus.
Aristobulus and who?
Aristobulus and Antigonus.
No.
Okay, tell me.
Grandsons.
They're the grandsons of John Hyrcanus.
Yes.
There we go.
Grandson and probably a great grandson.
All right, bet. It says the last of the Aaronic high priest, Herod then sought to affiliate himself with the high priesthood through marrying Mariamne, Aristobulus' sister and the daughter of a high priest. So Esau, he got what's the word? He got ideas. His plan is to make himself more of a legitimate high priest. Mind you, this ain't how our shit work. He trying to do his own thing. But he trying to marry Mariamne, who was the daughter of a high priest. You understand? So he trying to get in there by any means. Reading on, Herod even rebuilt the temple as it was in ruins from the repeated sieges, part of which Herod was responsible for by his attack upon the city. So if y'all don't know, our temple was being destroyed. Herod ended up rebuilding the temple. It says the temple of God became, in a sense, Herod's temple. It says, we thus find that in years just before the time of Christ, Judea was controlled by an Edomite faction who usurped the Judite name, land, and heritage. So this is why it's so important to learn this history, because it's way more politics, it's way more depths, it's way more underhand, it's way more stuff going on. It's way more stuff going on than this book is able to just express in these 2 pages, 3 pages. But right before Christ hit the scene, you got Edomites overtaking and usurping the priestly line. You got them taking over our land, our heritage. They doing everything. It says under John Hyrcanus, the Edomites were forced to be a part of Judean culture, but under Herod, the Herodian faction, they had control over the Judeans' culture and way of life. So there's more that go on to it. And I'm gonna swing it back to you, Aharon, if you see it sufficient to touch on anything in particular.
Um, the stuff that I got is gonna jump back.
Jump back.
All
Like I
right.
said, that's more of like a broader overview. It is a brief history of Hasmonean history. So, but jumping back is completely fine.
All right. So I got something shared. I actually got the book pulled up that I read.
All right, bet. I got your screen showed up.
So right here. We was just right here in this area. We're jumping back to around here with John and Aristobulus. Jumping back with John and Aristobulus. It says how the Hasmoneans came to be hated. It says as long as John Hyrcanus lived, the conflict of views did not lead to serious results. He continued to be popular with all classes. He remembered his upbringing in the midst of the old Hasidic influences, and therefore kept his private life free from suspicion by the scribes and their adherents. His children, however, had been reared differently. They had never known days of poverty and defeat. They had grown up in palace, and they looked upon themselves as the leading aristocrats of their nation. So John Hyrcanus' kids did not know poverty. They didn't know battle, defeat, war. They didn't know these things like John did, right? John seen these things with his father and his grandfather, his uncles. But his children didn't, right? They only grew up in palaces, so they can only know, you know, the good of life, and they felt wealthy. And let's keep reading. It says, moreover, the education they received was more Greek than Jewish, and more a preparation for war and conquest than for peaceful and religious leadership. So they knew more training in Greek and in war and conquest, right? Which the Greek thing is bad, but the war and conquest thing could be good, but it also could be bad, because our people are a spiritual people. We needed religious leadership during this time. That's what we needed. You had the scribes going at each other, the Pharisees, the Sadducees. You had different sects rising up, going at each other. Go ahead, King.
Hey, a quick point. You spoke on this earlier, and I want to make sure this connection is made. We had the opportunity to really set our nation up for success, like national success, to really have a strong, booming economy, a booming nation. But we had too many what's the saying Captain DeBar always say? We had too many chiefs, not enough Indians. I know that sounds racist, but we had too many people. It's just like today in our Israelite community. We always, our leaders, our teachers, most of the thing we see is us going back and forth with each other about doctrine. If I'm just being honest, this is what it looked like for me. I've been in the community for multiple years, since 2018, and I'm not throwing those shots. It's just that's what it looked like. Instead of us setting up, I'll shout out IUIC. Some of the brothers is doing very well. Like they got streets full of houses that they own. You see what I'm saying? They actually building stuff, getting things done. All praise to the Most High for the brothers who figured this out. Shout out to Judah Apollos. because I know he got some land and he got brothers. They getting it done. They building stuff on the land. We got less of that and more of theological debates and I know this and we the home of the truth and such and such such and such and such such and more of that instead of us actually being able to build and grow on like on an economic level. And our people were doing this too. We had the Sadducees, Pharisees, the Essenes, and we couldn't come together enough to really build a super strong nation and build an army. You see what I'm saying? We was too focused on, which ain't nothing. We need doctrine. We need the religious. We need that sector. It's so important. That's our heritage. It is what it is. We need that. I'm not saying we don't need it. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. The main thing is we had so much of that we didn't focus on really building a strong economy and having an army and just being set up to be able to defend ourselves to where the Greeks and the Romans could just conquer us. You see what I'm saying? And we having some of them same growing pains today. That's why you see SOJ, if you watch us closely, we don't do too much debating. In the highways and byways, we do get in our little scuffles, if you will, but that's not the spirit of SOJ. That's not the spirit of SOJ. We really want to build stuff. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to go at our own people. While we cordial with people, even if they got differences in doctrines. Because ultimately we want to love our people. I'm going on a rant. One more thing. I see brothers hating other brothers because there's a difference in doctrine. The doctrine is to love your brother. That's the doctrine. But you started hating your brother because of a doctrine. And we got to grow. We got to, like Captain Jeremiah said, I'm so grateful. This is my father-in-law. He taught me this as I was young in the truth. He said, you got to have spiritual maturity. You got to have spiritual maturity. You have to have spiritual maturity. I yield.
That's a fact. Back to this, it says, they looked upon the Pharisees with disdain and upon the Pharisaic policy as something to be eliminated. The Pharisees responded with fear and dislike. The life and actions of the later Hasmoneans caused the great services of the earlier ones to be almost completely forgotten. So the acts of the grandchildren and the great grandchildren almost caused the acts of Mattathias, Judah Maccabees, Simon Thassi, Jonathan, John. It almost caused all of those things to be completely forgotten because of how often wicked these guys were. Right? Aristobulus, lover of the Greeks. If you remember, Aristobulus the first, he's the child of John Hyrcanus. It says the 1 year reign of Hyrcanus' oldest son showed the Pharisees what they were to expect from the Greek-trained Hasmonean generation. His Jewish name was Judah, but he preferred the Greek name Aristobulus. This is the Hellenistic period. This is when the whole world was influenced by the Greeks, even our people. You can sit here and say, but nah, this is the grandson of Simon, the great grandson of Mattathias, and you can argue all these things, but this is what it say. This is what it's going into. He preferred Greek tradition. He preferred that. He preferred his Greek name, Aristobulus. It says because he was afraid that his brothers might start a palace revolution against him, his first act was to throw 3 of them into prison, where 2 are supposed to have starved to death. This sound like Greek. This all sound like Greek fashion. This is not what a lot of our people got into, where we get fear and I gotta throw them in prison. And you hear a lot of that stuff in Roman and Greek tale. Right? So he threw 3 of his brothers into prison, where 2 of them supposed starved to death, right? It says a few months later, another brother was treacherously murdered in the palace. This was the sort of thing that happened regularly in the pagan kingdoms, Egypt, Syria, and others. But it shocked and disgusted the Jews. You hear about this kind of stuff over there in, pagan societies and people serving other gods, and that's not what we did. Our people didn't get down like that. A great majority of our people didn't get down like that. I'm not saying nobody ever did it, but a great majority of our people, we didn't get down like that.
That wasn't the culture, bro.
That's not the culture. You got the brother popping up dead. You throwing your brothers in prison. This happening. This happening. All this. No. That's not how we. That's not how we conducted business. We were a very council-like people. We're going to take this to the council. We're going to take this to the Sanhedrin. We're going to take this to the elders, to the leadership, and talk this out and discuss it with wisdom. We're not finna just sit here and up and poison and kill and backstab and this and that and the third. And even sometimes when you read that in the Bible, guess what? It was probably a Gentile right there conducting it. But our people, it's out of the blue. It says, in the national policy, Aristobulus continued to attack and conquer more territory from the pagans. So he was doing basically his father's business, right? John Hyrcanus, his mission was to gain more land mass, right? And Aristobulus followed in that. It says, boldly he assumed the title of king, though he had sufficient regard for the sensibilities of the Pharisees, who would have none but a member of the Davidic family as king, not to call himself by the title Melech or Malak in Hebrew. The masses of the Jews sighed with relief when he died, after a reign of but 1 year. Drink, disease, and the haunting fear of rebellion have curtailed his life. So he lived a wicked life, and he only received 1 year at the throne. This is what happened. He only received 1 year at the throne, and he boldly took the title king. It says, unfortunately, his successor was no better, Alexander Janai. Let's go to it. You got John Hyrcanus. We just read about Aristobulus. Now his successor is his brother, Alexander Janai, or Alexander Jannaeus. Let's read about him. Let me see if I can find it. All right, man. Alexander Janai. His Hebrew name was Jonathan, contracted into Janai. It says, was the only brother of Judah Aristobulus, still alive in prison at Aristobulus' death. The change of rulers brought no change of policy. For 15 years, Alexander Janai extended his territory. The boundaries of the kingdom now included almost all the pagan cities in Palestine, so that all the commercial highways and centers of trade were practically under Jewish rule. In 89 BC, Alexander Janai campaigned against the Arabs to the south. He was to ambush and lost almost his entire army. The Pharisees had been waiting for this opportunity, since until now Alexander had held them back, or held them in check, by means of armed might. On the following Sukkot, while Alexander was officiating as high priest in the temple, the common people who were watching the proceedings as if by prearranged signal, pelted him with the etrigum or citrons, which each one had in his hand in according with the ceremonial requirements of the holiday. So I looked this up. We would bring certain, like it says, citrons to a certain holiday. I don't remember exactly which one it was or what it was going into, but it was a big fruit. Let me see if I can look it up. Here we go. It was kind of a hefty fruit. It wasn't that big, but here's what it looks like. It looks like, something like a lemon or something, but it's basically hard. And they threw this at him, at the high priest, the ruler, Alexander. Let's see how he reacts, right? Because the common people didn't really like him. Let's see how he reacts. which each one had in his hand according with the ceremonial requirements of the holiday. Alexander Janai was not the man to stand for such conduct on the part of his subjects. At his order, the soldiers who were standing guard around the temple charged into the multitude, killing hundreds of defenseless people. This is what he did. A lot of these kings during this time were emotional, not very rational in thinking, not far. They were far from wisdom in terms of, leadership and guidance, right? In terms of how to keep people in order, in terms of how to please the people, it was just far from it, right? And he did a lot worse, to be honest with you. It says it was the signal for an open outbreak, unequipped to cope with Alexander themselves. The Pharisees invited the Syrian king to help them. The successors of the Hasidim asking the Syrians to help them against the descendants of the Maccabees, the Syrians came in force, and the Pharisees flocked to them in great numbers. So the Pharisees called for the help of the Greeks. Why did they do that? Because they have a tyrant as king. Right? You got to think about it. This is a lot of the politics we were talking about. This is your history. This is history that we don't read in the Bible. It's history we don't read in Maccabees. This is history that's just we just don't have. We just not touching on. We have it, but you got to open up these kind of books for it, right?
It says nobody trying to read, man.
Ain't nobody trying to read, bro. You see this page? It ain't no pictures on this page. It's a lot of small words.
It is boring, man.
It's look boring, bro.
I ain't gonna lie. Most of Jake is clocking out, bro. You got to make it interesting, bro.
I know. I ain't no colors around. You got to open a book and read. This is something that I do say. If you want wisdom, you got to do the boring stuff.
Jake used to TikTok, bro. You gotta come quicker, bro.
Jake used to TikTok, man. Got TikTok brain. Ain't nobody. We doing all this reading. Come on, no, we finna read. It's all right.
You can't sum that up.
You can't sum it up, brother. You couldn't.
I think I got TikTok brain.
Nah, bro. We reading. But check this out. It is finna get interesting. It says Alexander Janai was unable to withstand this attack and defeated in the field, was forced to hide in the hills. Now, however, the Pharisees realized that the Syrian king would claim the fruits of the victory and resume the former Syrian authority over Judea. Thinking that Alexander and the Sadducees had been sufficiently punished, thousands of Pharisees deserted the Syrian army and went over to Alexander. So, the Pharisees are the ones who set this up in the first place, caused the Syrian king to come over here and defeat Alexander. Pharisees are like, okay, he must have learned his lesson. He must have learned his lesson. So let's go join back unto Alexander, right? It says, with their aid, Alexander Janai was able to take the field once more and inflict a crushing defeat upon the Syrians and the remaining Pharisees. But the patriotic rebels had failed to understand the un-Jewishness of their king. Restored to power, he instituted a hunt for the leaders of the rebellion against him. Many fled the country. Alexander made a horrible examples of those he caught. In the garden of one of his palaces, he gave a banquet to the Sadducees leaders to celebrate his victory, and in presence of his celebrating guest, had 800 Pharisees crucified. This is the kind of stuff we were doing in those 80 years we had independence. In those 80 years, for us to get together, get right, build, become stronger, he invited the Sadducees over. The Sadducees leaders, they're at a banquet, they're eating, they're drinking. and he has the Pharisees come out. When you go into this story, let me see. When you go into this story, what he had was he had the families of the Pharisees come out. He killed their families right in front of the Pharisees as they're being crucified, and then killed them. Killed them. 800 Pharisees crucified at a banquet, at a festival, while men are eating and drinking. This is what happened. It says this bloody deed, as well as the pagan way in which it was executed, crucifixion being a method used only by the pagans to punish treason, stamped Alexander Janai forever as one of the cruelest tyrants in Jewish history. This was not how we punish people. This was not what we did. We didn't do that. We didn't crucify each other. That's something that the pagans did. That's something that the Romans did, the Greeks. Us? We didn't do this. This is not how we handle matters. It says, moreover, it made compromise between Pharisees and Sadducees utterly impossible, and thus an important link in the chain of circumstances which led to the loss of Jewish independence. This is what we were doing. This is why the Lord don't just be letting us reign and rule in independence, because brothers don't be having wisdom. We don't got wisdom. Let the Lord give us some independence now. What are we going to do with it? You got this brother over here, he's in Egyptology. You got this brother over here, he believes in the Sabbath day being the moon. He believed it's Saturday. He believed this. He believed Christ was born of a woman. He believed Christ was born of Joseph. This brother believed this. This brother believed that. And none of us is going to be able to come together and just build. We're not going to love each other. You got brothers on Facebook disrespecting elders because of doctrine. Because of this. We cannot govern ourselves. That's like leaving children home alone.
Hey, you got say what you said again, that last part.
It's like leaving children home alone.
What you say before that?
We cannot govern ourselves.
What you say before that?
I don't know, brother.
Since you got knuckleheads disrespecting elders,
yes,
over doctrine, talking crazy. And I think a big part of this is social media. And I do not appreciate brothers talking crazy over social media, especially to an elder. The law say when the hoary head walk in, you're supposed to reverence. You're supposed to stand up, salute, and show reverence. You're supposed to show respect. You're supposed to respect your elders. That's the culture. Then you give a knucklehead who came into the truth 2 years ago a Facebook, and you give him a few breakdowns from them who knows where, and the elder got a stance, and then you think that you can disrespect them on social media and talk crazy, but that's not our heritage. That's not how we get down, bro. Really, you don't even got no place to be even doing any of that. Yep. You need to pipe down. And it's like we losing our culture. We getting more in tune with their stuff instead of our stuff. Need to be more respect and reverence for our elders. You know what I'm saying? There is a time and a place for, admonishing an elder respectfully. You don't talk crazy though. You should not even admonishing. It's entreating. That's what the scriptures say. You entreat an elder as a father. That's what you should do, if anything. But you got young men who 20 years old I mean, rebuking the elder like he his little brother who he bringing the truth. Like, bro, you crazy. That ain't the spirit. That ain't the one could say you breaking God's commandments to an extent. You not even rebuking him on something solid. You just got a stance that you dislike his stance.
Yep.
Come on now, bro. Y'all need to learn how to be brotherly because the real doctrine is what? Loving your brother, loving your neighbor. You ain't got so much doctrine. Look, Shakawar, he deep in there. Look at this, the scripture I reference, Leviticus 19:32. Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head and honor the face of the old man and fear thy God. I am the Lord. This is the command. This isn't an option. You need to show respect to our elders. And when you talk to them any which way, bro, you breaking God's commandments. But we didn't learn that. We skipped that. The young brothers and sisters, the young brothers who came into the truth, the first thing they learn is how to cut somebody. They ain't learn how to respect their elders. When they get knowledge puffed up. And you know, after being in the truth for a little bit, even me, I was guilty of this at one point. But now it's time that we gotta grow and be more spiritually mature, man. We gotta grow up more. And my book finna die. I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah. We almost finna be done, but I do want to read this part right here. It says, but in some other respects, Pharisaic Judaism was much more difficult to live. This is early Pharisee life, right? This ain't Christ Pharisee yet. We're gonna build up to that. This is early Pharisee life, right? Was more difficult to live by because it insisted upon knowledge and piety in every conceivable action. Piety is righteousness in religion. It says, thus the Jewish people became divided on national, economic, and religious policy. From division so profound and so bitter, no good could come. You had the Pharisees who wanted to rule by religion and God. Then you had the Sadducees who wanted to rule. I mean, we can read right here, the Sadducees. It says the opponents of the Pharisees who now remain in complete charge of the government acquired the name Sadducees. It is a word even harder to explain than Pharisee. Some suppose that it had its origin in of the family of Zadok, the high priest under King Solomon. Of course, the adherents of the party were not only priests, but all who wanted the Jews to become, in the first place, a strong nation gaining territory at expense of Syria, and secondly, a prosperous nation ruled by its aristocracy, like Rome and every other nation. The Sadducees wanted to rule like every other nation. They wanted to conquer. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to conquer. They wanted to have more economics going on. Whereas the Pharisees, what? Hyrcanus' reign saw the emergence of two political parties. The party of the scribes, the one opposed to expansion, became known as the Pharisee party. No one knows exactly why that name was used or even what the word itself means. It is supposed to come from the Hebrew word parash, which means to separate. If so, the name may imply that the king separated these men from his council or Sanhedrin, choosing to rule only with the advice of those who favored his policy. Or it may refer to the voluntary separation of the king's opponents from the government in protest against his politics. According to this, the name Pharisee would mean either the separated or the opposition. Again, the name may have resulted from the desire of the group to have as little possible to do with neighboring nations. From this point of view, the word Pharisee might be an echo of that separatism which had been advocated by Ezra and Nehemiah. The Pharisees wanted to be set apart. They wanted to be holy. They didn't care about conquering. They didn't. When the Pharisees got in rule under Queen Salome, right here, this is what it says, good Queen Salome, because once her husband died, mind you, she married Aristobulus I. He died, I believe. How did that go? Let me see. Me and Shock was going over it the other day. Yes. Okay. So yeah, they were keeping the law. Let me go to it. They were keeping the law. Aristobulus and Salome got married. They didn't have any children. So, being that, she married Alexander Janai. Since she married Alexander Janai, guess what? Aristobulus II comes forth because that's what the law is. You got to bring forth seed in his name under, her first husband. So she married Alexander Janai. When he died, they saw it not fit for these two to reign. Neither one of these could reign. They just didn't have it. They weren't wise. They weren't using wisdom. So guess what? Queen Salome came in. She came in. And she set the Pharisees up. She put them in rule over this Sanhedrin. The Sadducees had rule. But when she got into power, she put the Pharisees in rule. Guess what happened under them? They started setting up schools. They looked towards people like Joshua ben Sirach in the book of Sirach, because he has set this book goes over that. He has set up a lot of schools. They looked towards people like Ezra. They wanted piety among the nation. Whereas the Sadducees wanted to conquer and have economic greatness. The Pharisees set up schools. They need every young man must have knowledge in the Torah, in the scrolls, in the books of wisdom. That's what the Pharisees wanted. So you got these things going on, and this guy's mad at this guy. This guy hates this guy. This guy does this. Under Queen Salome, there was no beef between the Pharisees and Sadducees. She kept everybody at peace. Did they hate each other still? Yes. But did anything happen? No. And then when she died, all hell broke loose. This is where we get the likes of Antipater. This is where we get the likes of Herod coming in. Because these Edomites are now playing with these guys' emotions. Like Shock said, powerful sister establishing the culture. I hate to say it, it's a lot of brothers not fit to rule. That's what I said. That's what I meant earlier. If the Lord literally put us in power now, what are we gonna do with it? Are we gonna go back to ruling how we ruled during this time? Some brothers is American still. This nigga's a Greek. We only got 80 years to rock out. And we didn't accomplish nothing. Go ahead.
We cooked.
Fried.
I ain't gonna lie, we cooked. Brothers can't agree. Brothers can't come together.
It's F him. F that camp. My camp is the camp. We got all the people. Y'all got nobody, and y'all do this, and y'all don't even got the truth.
It's gonna be a lot of pride and ego.
It's gonna be a whole lot of pride and ego. Who gonna be king? And this is that, and this.
We're not gonna be able to push the needle forward, man.
We're gonna end up right back in America. We're gonna end up right back here. It just wouldn't work. Learn the doctrine,
but I don't see it. I don't see it working right now.
No.
Best thing you can do, try and move in the best spirit as possible. Try and serve the Most High with a perfect heart. Keep God's commandments. Have faith in the Mashiach and Yahweh, obviously. And just each one teach one, bro.
Yep. Learn the doctrine, bro. The doctrine is love thy neighbor. It don't say love thy neighbor unless they got a different doctrine. It don't say love thy neighbor unless he kind of doing this. Love thy neighbor unless he kind of doing that. It say love thy neighbor. Simple. Can brothers disagree? Yes. That's fine. Guess what though? It also still says if your enemy, his ass fall into a ditch, help him. Why? Because you're still supposed to love your neighbor. That's the doctrine. That's just what it is, right? So are we sitting here saying if it's a brother in your camp and he believe he don't got to keep no law, statutes, commandments, that you got to keep him around, or he believe, adultery is okay, you got to keep him around. That's not what brothers are saying, right? You got to keep the commandments. But if it's a minor discrepancy, if it's something that y'all brothers can look past, if it's something that y'all brothers can talk about, like we got Shock in here. It's stuff that Shock disagree with our doctrine and we disagree with his, but we on the phone with this brother every day, keeping it good and brotherly. We love this brother. Brother love us. And we talk. We ask him about questions. He asks us questions. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what's this, that, and the third? Hey, what's this? And we learn from each other. And it's all love. Go ahead, King.
And you'll find out that we believe more stuff. We agree on more stuff than we disagree.
Yep. That's a fact. So we going through this history because if you don't know history, it's bound to repeat itself. That's how you know we the people of this book. We doing the same. When I'm reading this book, because I started like 80 something. And well, with y'all, I started on like page 80 something. I've read all the way up until like page 130 so far. I've been reading it every day. And we're doing a lot of the same stuff that caused us to fall. From the time of us getting out of Babylon all the way up to where we at now with Herod, we're doing a lot of the same things. And it's just not good. It's just, we're just not doing it. This is literally why Christ hit the scene. Love your neighbor. He literally, let me go to it. Let me go to it real quick. Let me see if I can pull my Bible up.
Pull up your Bible, God.
Let me see. Let me go to it. It all makes sense why Christ starts saying what he was saying. Matthew 5, verse 47. And if you only, hold on, bro, what is this? Give me the KJV, man. What was that? That was nasty. Boom. Here we go. Now we're talking. And if you salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? You kind of don't salute nobody that that ain't a part of your camp. Nah, I don't know them brothers. We don't rock with them brothers. The same thing they was doing. We kind of don't. Nah, man. We don't rock with them. We don't like them. It ain't It ain't that. These brothers say what's the word? What's the name? These brothers don't use Yahushua. They say Yeshua. We ain't rocking with them. I ain't dealing with them. Damn, brother, that's all it took. That's all it took. Mind you, while we're so divided, are these enemy nations? No. They're together. Give a damn what they believe. He's a part of my nation. I gotta stand next to him. I gotta stand next to him. I'm riding, I'm gonna die for him. Care what he's talking about. And it's gonna be the same way. A lot of us look at each other as enemies and talk this stuff and go over these things right now. But when stuff hits the fan, you're gonna be looking for your brother. You're gonna be looking for the guy that had a different doctrine than you because he your people.
Facts.
You ain't gonna find him though. Y'all been separated for so long. Y'all ain't on one accord. Y'all don't got no game plan. Y'all don't know how to move with each other. You don't even know where to find him at because you hated his guts. You hated his guts, man. Because He just didn't believe that this prophecy was going into the same thing you did. Dang. God. Esau? They ain't in there talking about that, man. They don't care. They don't even know each other, and they go out and ride and die for each other. He's standing next to me. That's my brother. That's all they care about. Jake? He's from Crip. He's from Blood. He's from BD. He's from GD. He's from a different block. He's from a different camp. He has a different doctrine. It don't take much to divide us up. We all so smart, we dumb as hell.
That's the thing, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Brothers is really intelligent, super smart. Too smart.
Too smart.
Too smart. Too smart.
Too smart.
Sheesh.
Sucks. That's all I got though. A brief look into the Hasmonean dynasty. Maybe next week we can go over Queen Salome and what takes place with her and her two children. Because remember, all of this is going to lead up to this devil right here. We went into a brief little spot on him just to show the connection between him and John Hyrcanus. And so now we're talking about it, leading it all the way down into the New Testament. It's all going to make sense, right? You got anything out? God. With that, we want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to the Most High God Yahweh, by Hashem, Hamashiach, Yahushua. We want to say Shalom.
Shalom.